The mother of that man, Pete Hegseth, who could soon be the Secretary of Defense, apparently wrote him a pretty scathing email back in 2018, laying out the various ways that he had mistreated and abused women, according to her, while also criticizing his character. Now, we're gonna get to what she's now saying about those emails in a bit, but first, here is what she sent to her son. On behalf of all of the women, and I know it's many, you have abused in some way, I say, get some help and take an honest look at yourself. That's, I think, look, I don't think I need to tell you that for a mother to commit those sorts of words to a message that you send to your kids, you must feel that there's some bad stuff that was done. And the context in this case was that Pete Hegseth was in the middle of a contentious divorce from his second wife, Samantha. That was the mother of 3 of his children. She'd filed for divorce after her husband impregnated a coworker, part of a pattern of adultery that dated back to his first marriage. So the cycle had continued at this point. And during this divorce, he was communicating with her in ways that a lot of people had issues with. It actually came up in court filings. But to go back to Penelope Hegseth, she says, I have no respect for any man that belittles, lies, cheats, sleeps around, and uses women for his own power and ego. You are that man and have been for years. And as your mother, it pains me and embarrasses me to say that, but it is the sad, sad truth. And talking about the way he had treated Samantha specifically, she wrote, for you to try to label her as unstable for your own advantage is despicable and abusive. Is there any sense of decency left in you? She did not ask for or deserve any of what has come to her by your hand. Neither did Meredith, talking about his first wife, who he had cheated on with Samantha, his second wife. She said, I don't want an answer to this. I don't want to debate with you. You twist and abuse everything I say anyway. But on behalf of all of the women, and I know it's many, you have abused in some way, I say get some help and take an honest look at yourself. And so, as I said, she is now very much distancing herself from those messages that she sent. And I get why she would. It's been years, maybe they've been able to patch up their differences. Also, this stuff could potentially hurt him from getting a very lucrative and powerful position. So maybe she's playing some defense for him there. But regardless, that's what she sent. What do you make of it, Francesca? You are, we should know, a mother.
Swear to God. Actually, that was my very first thought when I saw this was like, I don't have a son, but if I did, I would want to do everything in my power to prevent them from being, yes, a serial abuser and philanderer and someone who routinely hurts the ones that they love and even aggresses upon women. And I want that for my child anyway. I want that for my daughter anyway. To not be that person. And what can you do, especially growing up in patriarchy, to make sure that they don't turn into that person, and so that's immediately where my mind went. I saw a mom who felt like she was in distress, like she was witnessing her grandchildren and the mother of her grandchildren be put through a terrible process, having been cheated on, like just on and on and on. And I'm like, you don't write this letter to your kid if it's not incredibly dire. And you don't call them an abuser if they're not an abuser. You're not like, oh, look, you're kind of a womanizer. You could say womanizer, you could say philanderer. No, she said abuser. So that was what hit me first. And this is wild. Then also to then now be like, never mind. I didn't mean that. No. You meant that.
Well, why don't we turn to the never mind? And by the way, you're totally right to focus on the word abuser. Also, the way you can read the whole letter, it's up there, and there was some in this. She also, the way she talks about him and like the way she tries to get out in front of how he'll respond implies that she's not necessarily saying it, but she seems to think he abuses her, like the way that he treats her and gaslights her and all that. And again, by the way, parents can be wrong about their kids. I fully acknowledge that. If this was the only thing we knew about him, then it might be easy to say, well, who's to say who's right here? But we know a lot about this guy, okay?
Yeah.
Now, we'll get to, there's other elements of this that I think are important for people to know. But she did defend her son in a recent interview. It was on Friday after some of this had come out. She said that the original email had been fired off in anger with emotion at a time when he and his wife were going through a difficult divorce, which we knew. She now says she disavows the sentiments she'd expressed, saying, "It is not true. It has never been true. I know my son. He is a good father, husband." She said that publishing the contents of the first email was disgusting. Okay, she's free to have that. I mean, look, good father, husband, I don't know the guy. Maybe he's a good father. Maybe he's a good husband. He has cheated on and divorced multiple women at this point. So maybe good husband, probably not great husband. I think maybe he caps out at good with all of the serial impregnating other people while you're still married stuff. But anyway, Stephen Chung, spokesman for Mr. Trump, it's his time in the block to come in and say something insane. He said it was despicable of the Times to publish a, quote, out of context snippet. First of all, they published the entire letter. There was nothing out of context. All of the context was there. And so, of course, he has to come in and say something insane. But I just want to remind everyone, because some of you might be thinking, well, who cares about this? Well, first of all, some of the abuse is he was alleged to have raped a woman. So let's be clear about that. Why don't you focus on, how he would run the Department of Defense? Well, we've done multiple videos about that. We've talked about how he's like apparently horny for civil war and all that. We've talked about how he apparently thinks it's okay for Israel to invade the US. But anyway, we also have this personal stuff. And so in terms of who he is, he says he's a deeply Christian man. I mean, he's literally a Christian nationalist. It must be important to him. And he follows conservative family values. Well, this is his history, okay? So in terms of who he is and how much his values actually matter to him, he married Meredith Schwartz in 2005. They divorced 5 years later because of infidelity. The following year, he married Samantha, who I believe he impregnated while he was with Meredith. By 2016, he was having an affair with a Fox News executive producer, Jennifer Roschett. They're now married, okay? So multiple suites of adultery that led to divorce. There could be other adultery we don't know about. I'm just talking about the ones that ended the marriages. And now he's with Jennifer Roschett. At this point, so they're married. I can't tell you right now who he is going to impregnate that will lead to him divorcing Jennifer Roschett, because it hasn't happened yet. But we can probably update you in about a year or two, because this is who he is and this is the pattern that he follows. And the only reason I bring up all of this is so that it's context, and Stephen Chung cares about context, for this quote. He wrote once, "Had I been raised in a family where faith, fidelity, and fatherhood were not valued, my choices could have led to family breakdown." So he's saying, no. Yeah. I cheat on and impregnate a bunch of women and I divorce my wives, but I was brought up right with faith. So it didn't lead to family breakdown. If it didn't lead to, first of all, you broke up multiple families, but regardless, you have money. I get that, but look at this a-hole who pretends to have all these deep Christian values or whatever, and then doesn't live it literally at all, cheats on multiple women or whatever, rather than doing the right thing. But he has maintained for himself an elevated superior edifice from which he can look down on other people who do the exact same thing as him. They're bad because they don't have my Christian upbringing. I can do whatever the hell I want because I once touched a Bible. All of you are dirty scum, okay? I'm awesome. You put me in charge of a bunch of stuff. And so there's multiple reasons, of course, that he should not be the Secretary of Defense. This is just one of them. I don't know where we rank it, Francesca, but any other thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we need to start understanding that when people talk about Christian values, they are often talking about values that they think are Christian, but if you ask actual Christians or not, but it's a particular read of Christianity which says that there's a deep hierarchy, there's deep patriarchy. You follow what men do, you forgive them for any of their aggression. You know your place, you shut up, you don't get access to the healthcare that you need should you not want to carry that man's baby, or you definitely have to get access to the healthcare if they don't want you carrying their baby. You will put up with a philandering husband, and that is the Christian thing to do. Christian nationalism is just about following orders, and it's about knowing your place. And that is, I don't know, doesn't seem too Christian to me, doesn't seem
No.
too based in morals, but it's not. It's based in like power. And so I think we just have to grasp that actually this is perfectly consistent with what he thinks Christianity is. And like, again, I don't know, John, I don't know who to look to anymore. It's like everything we do, the Me Too movement happens and it gets decried for being, woke, and what happened to due process, and you have women on the right time and time again. And I realize I've been kind of naive about wanting them to actually speak up, but you have women on the right who time and time again are absolutely perfectly okay with being aggressed upon and being second-class citizens, so long as it doesn't happen to them. And if it does happen to them, well, they better be rich enough and have, access to healthcare, to trauma therapy, to, in order to get over it enough. Like, that's it. It's like how many more examples do we need? You've got Steven Crowder screaming at his pregnant with twins wife about doing her wifely duties. Ugh. And it's like, how does this not implode the entire idea of like the Christian right and morality and family values? And it doesn't, because that entire idea has been maybe reached its final form, which is simply violence against women, all power to all men.
Yeah, and like reassuring, lesser men that is acceptable by lifting up men who have done it and surrounding yourself with them.
Yes.
Yeah, look, at the end of the day, all of the ideology is just about setting up hierarchy. That's all the right is about, is setting up hierarchies that, oh, what do you know? I'm at the top of by virtue of birth. Isn't that awesome? And for most of the men, it's none of them want to have to be better than they are at their worst. And so if we can set up a system where me at my worst is the best, and how dare you ever demand more?
Yes.
That's what they want. It's lazy mediocrity being like raised up by the ideology.
And almost by virtue of being violent and virtue of being criminal and virtue, because it's like, again, it's that Trump can get away with anything. Everyone wants to be that. And that is virtuous in their minds, is to just get away with all of the things that you do, be them criminal or be them just sort of morally reprehensible or hurting everyone in your family. And that's valorized, because you're exactly right. I mean, and it's the height of fragility. The height of fragility is not being able to take any accountability for your own actions. And here you have his effing mother saying it.
And by the way, also, this is now a genre. Because remember, Jesse Waters also has his mother desperately trying to get him to not be a major POS. The mothers are trying to do their best, but unfortunately, the guys, they could go to their mother, the example of their mother who's desperately trying to help them, who actually loves them, or instead Trump says, I don't have to be any better. And that is a lot easier, also pays better. So I'm just gonna do that. That's all that it is.
I mean, don't get me into this like strong dads thing, but it does make you feel like we do need better dads. I don't mean strong dads, better dads.
Yeah.
John, can you adopt every right winger, please, now?
That sounds terrible. Yeah, and I'll conclude by saying, at the end of the day, I'm also most frustrated at the Democrats, because these guys would not be difficult to defeat if you did the literal bare minimum. If you actually cared, you could beat them. Trump barely won, very barely, okay? Even with you guys being as terrible and as Anna would say, feckless as you are, if you were to actually try to deliver, you would wallop them every time. And that's what we're gonna be desperately trying to get them to do by the next time. When you click the join button and become a tier 2 member, you get access to all of our weekly top 10 lists. What are you waiting for?